Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Everything Different in New Game Plus here in Dark Souls 2. And if you want to take a look at my stats, feel free to pause. And then as far as gear goes, we are going to be running with the Fire Longsword plus 10, as well as using Flame Weapon on that. And we also are using the Slumbering Dragon Shield that we picked up from the Archdrake Knights and Shrine of Amana. So a bit of a different build for us. We don't typically run with shields, we being me and apparently the parrot that's on my shoulder. Say hi, parrot. Sorry, my parrot doesn't actually talk, nor do I have a parrot. But anyway, we're going to be running a sword and shield build. Now, the shield that I chose, number one, it looks pretty neat, but also it does have the added bonus of having stamina regeneration. I honestly don't actually use the shield. I really just use it for the stamina regen, but I figured I have to try out all the different builds at some point, right? So I'm going to go ahead and check off sword and shield off my list now. Now, we just went through the Majula Pit pretty quickly. We didn't go all the way to the bottom. Sadly, there's nothing new in the Majula Pit. In fact, in this entire run, which we will be doing the Majula Pit, Grave of Saints, the Gutter, and Black Gulch all in one, there are very few noticeable differences, other than, of course, the standard New Game Plus enemy scaling difficulty. But as far as items and extra enemies and phantoms go, these areas are very light, and some of the changes that are made are also very subtle, and if you aren't paying attention or have a list right in front of you, hear that? That's my notebook full of items. You may not even pick up on it. So the first one is this skeleton right here. We have a large soul of a brave warrior. In New Game, all that is a large soul of a nameless soldier. So you're welcome. And as far as Grave of Saints goes, sadly that's it. There's no new invasions, there's no black phantoms, no extra enemies. So we'll go ahead and we'll go right into the boss. And we will try our hand at taking out the Royal Rat Vanguard with a melee weapon. Now, I got a few comments in the last series, or in the very first series, the Everything Possible Before a Boss, that the Fire Longsword that you pick up in the Forest of Fallen Giants is a very viable and very good weapon. And after playing around with it in these areas, I have nothing but love and praise for this weapon. Yes, it is not a unique weapon. It's simply a longsword that's been infused along the fire path. But the damage that it puts out at plus 10, as well as the quick moveset and the number of swings you can get in a single stamina bar, makes this weapon completely viable in my opinion, even for New Game Plus. So you'll see when I take on the Rotten a little bit later just how easily I'm able to deal with him, especially once you put on Flame Weapon as a buff. And again, just to reiterate, because I have had some comments and some private messages suggesting some much more powerful weapons than what I'm using now, absolutely, there are better weapons out there, and if you're looking for ideal build and you're trying to min-max and you want to get the absolute most damage potential out of your character, I have to be straight out honest and tell you, you're watching the wrong channel. Those stats are just not as important to me as having fun with the items and weapons that I'm using. All in all, at the end of the day, I want my character to look good, I want it to be functional, yes, but I also want the weapon to just be fun to use. And I'm finding that this Fire Longsword is an absolute blast. Now the next weapon that I'm going to be trying out, or probably the next weapon I'm trying out, is the Grand Lance that I've upgraded to plus 10. I think it's a really cool looking weapon and I'm excited to try it out. The problem is, it only really has one type of attack like the lances do, and that's a thrusting attack. There is a charging attack with the R2, but for multiple enemies, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very ideal. So that could make things very interesting. But enough about anything that's not Royal Rat Vanguard related. As you can see, the boss is already down to about half health. I did get poisoned or toxic once before, but with my SS Flask and Radiant Life Gems, I was able to hold it off until the meter ran down. I didn't even have to pop Poison Moss, which is good, because I actually forgot to put it on my hotbar. But that's the boss, in a nutshell, and just for good measure, and out of spite, I went ahead and killed some of the rats after the boss was defeated. So no changes there in that boss fight. Pretty straightforward. The only thing is you cannot let yourself get surrounded by the rats unless you have a weapon with a wide sweeping attack, and even then it can be very dangerous because of course you have those statues that you could hit. Now one change coming up here, once you hop down some of these coffins, on this bridge you'll see a shiny, and that shiny in New Game is a Bleedstone. In New Game Plus you still get the Bleedstone, but you also get a Twinkling Titanite. It's only a single one, so it may not be worth it to farm. There you go. Now here I am, that shiny right there, that's the disc chime, and it's still the disc chime in New Game Plus, but I still try to make the jump to make it over there, just to show you the other way of getting over to it, other than from the bridge. And supposedly that way's easier. Now I did get it later on because I kept trying. I find it a lot easier to get it from the bridge, but that's just me. Take care of these exploding dudes. Now I believe the other option that I showed you in the last series was if you let them jump and then roll after they've landed, you can escape the explosion very easily. I was very afraid for some reason. I was very nervous to allow that to happen. As you can see, back in this tunnel, we have 2 phantoms, and this is the only change at the bottom of this area. So I'm going to try to go ahead and draw them out. Let's see how we fare. Now, in my opinion, the best approach to taking out these 2 is to charge in, not knowing exactly what's back there, and just start swinging blindly. That way you have the greatest opportunity of possibly getting some damage off before they actually start killing you in a turn. My other suggestion would be to understand how to roll through lightning spears. As someone who used it extensively in the last series, I don't have a darn clue how to actually protect myself against that. So I died. Sad. But here we are, attempt number 2. I think I'm going to change my pro strategy just a little bit, and I'm going to see if it's possible to aggro just one at a time. And the good news is, it is. Now it's easy to block the lightning spears, I find, whenever he hits the wall. So if you can get him hitting the wall with great lightning spears, dodging becomes that much easier. Just keep that in mind. It's less easy when you take it to the face. However, as long as you have the stamina, really this fight just becomes an R1 spam fest. And I personally have no issues with that whatsoever. Now, I find this interesting. We have the Dingy Hood, the Robe, the Cuffs, and a blood-stained skirt all at +5. Now that set belongs to Anastasia, who is the bonfire keeper at Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 1. She wore the exact same set of armor, and you could pick up that armor if you let Lautrec kill her. Now you could then avenge her death later on by invading Lautrec's world in Anor Londo, and then you could get the Firekeeper soul back, and then you could bring Anastasia back to life. But here's my question. Was that the Phantom of Anastasia? And then if so, the question would come back to, how is she still alive? Yes, she died once in Dark Souls 1, or at least in my game she did. She did come back to life because I returned her soul, but she's still alive after all this time. Is it something to do with bonfire keepers not aging or not dying? But to that, I would raise the question, what about the fire keepers that are in Things Betwixt? They are clearly aging, and if they're aging, it means they could possibly die. Now let me take a quick break from my terrible lore speculation and show you the next item. Here we have the Dark Pyromancy Flame and 3 Rotten Pine Resins. In the first new game, you only get 1 Rotten Pine Resin. Flash forward all the way to the Rotten because unfortunately there is nothing left in the gutter or in Black Gulch that has changed, but I'll talk about that in a moment. I want to go back to Anastasia. The other thing that I found interesting about that fight was that she drops a ring of soul protection. So is it possible that Anastasia is still alive here in Dark Souls 2, potentially even in a different location, because she had the ring of soul protection equipped? Now I guess the counterpoint to that would be, but if it's not broken and I just picked it up, how was I able to kill her and she doesn't come back? I don't really know. Again, I am not a lore theorist. These are just things that I've kind of been coming up with on the fly as I'm playing through New Game Plus. You guys tell me if I'm absolutely off my rocker or if you agree with me. I just find it very interesting that we have such an obvious nod to Anastasia. Rotten fight, no changes here. It's the same fight as it was in New Game. However, in a week, in fact, in a week from now, because it is the 15th that I'm recording this, there will be something different in this room, because unfortunately there have been leaks, so spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers about the DLC, mute my video right now. Okay, for those of you who haven't had me muted, it's been leaked that the entrance to the first DLC content will be in this area, or rather it will be past the Broaden in the Primal Bonfire. Anyway, moving on. I was really disappointed to find out just how little changes in the gutter in Black Gulch. If you remember in my last series when I was talking about the gutter, I gave it a lot of praise for being a well-designed level. I like the multiple branching paths. I like the enemy placement. I like the enemy design, except those dogs and their absolutely horrific hitboxes. I like the item placement. I liked how condensed the area felt, while also giving us a lot to explore. I loved the fact that there was a zip line. I loved the fact that there was a zip line. So the fact that they didn't put that much thought into changing it up for New Game Plus is somewhat upsetting. Again, that's just me, but only a few items changed. There's only 2 phantoms. There's no extra enemies to speak of other than those 2 phantoms. I felt a little bit let down. Now you saw that I did pick up the Soul of the Old Dead one. That is a nod to Nito from Dark Souls 1. Again, if you guys haven't played Dark Souls 1, I do highly recommend it. No, you don't need it in order to appreciate Dark Souls 2. However, in many opinions, including my own, I believe Dark Souls 1 is a stronger game mechanic-wise and lore-wise. So if you're looking to get a little bit more information or maybe some more backstory onto some of these nods and homages that the developers put into Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 1 is a great place to start. So sad to say, but because there were so few changes, that is actually going to wrap up today's episode. I hope you guys liked it. If you learned something, leave me a comment below. If I missed something, you have to let me know that as well. Hopefully by now you guys know that I can take your criticism, but I also just really love interacting with you in the comments or on our Facebook page, so please keep the comments coming. I will try to respond to everyone as fast as I can. I will catch you guys next time.